Oh boy. You know what? I gotta admit that I was anticipating Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves for a long time, ever since I started it. But I kind of anticipated it, but mostly for the wrong reason, because the trailer kind of looked very, very try hard on trying to appeal the Marvel Cinematic Universe type of humor and tone, and you know what? I was kind of wanting to hope this movie to be bad but hilarious. This is how I start talking about this movie. But if you know, probably you might say that, according to some of my comments on previous videos, that I really like RPGs. But I didn't specify saying that I really like RPGs, but mostly in gaming. Mostly, this is video gaming, and that's what I meant to say. Video gaming. I really like video game RPGs, but funnily enough, I I never had an experience of playing tabletop RPGs. Although, even despite my old age, I do want to try out at least once. But unfortunately, if to play this kind of game, you need a kind of like a big group of friends that are there to help you. And so much that I even got kind of like an old Dungeons and Dragons book that it belonged to a family member from years ago, and I still have it. I think I got it somewhere around here, but nevertheless, I did have a childhood in which I grew up in a country that is not accustomed to these kind of games, or maybe I didn't look hard enough, or maybe it's just me. But the point is that I never played a Dungeons and Dragons game, and believe it or not, I haven't even seen the infamous Dungeons and Dragons movie from the year 2000. But I did saw the Nostalgia Critic video that introduced me to that movie. And boy, that this is one of those movies that, if I had kind of like the time and time to spare, maybe I could watch it, because they say that it's so bad it's hilarious. As well as there is also a Dungeons and Dragons animated series that I think I just vaguely watch it, because it kind of rarely show it in my country, or sometimes it slip out of them under my radar. But I know that the animated series is actually kind of like well known on for some people. Uh, and honestly, and I can see why. I did kind of gave a little bit of a sneak peek watching it, and I can see why it's kind of like, I don't know if the term is beloved, but more like recognizable, because it's one of those. They say that it's become one of those intense animated series that, well, intense in the sense of how intense the ratings board were into it. But anyway, this is basically my backstory with Dungeons and Dragons, and I just went to finally watch this one, Honor Among Thieves. I was really, really, really wanting it to be bad, but I came out disappointed. Disappointed in a weird way, because that movie was actually, it was fun. It was fun. I was entertained, and I don't think that I could find a lot of bad things, there's some things that I thought that, you know what, maybe this movie could have been better. It could have been better in terms of quality, but I don't think that was kind of like the angle that they went there. It was just basically they just decided to play along Dungeons and Dragons, and I got what I got. There are some parts that it got me entertained, but man, I kind of wish that this movie could have been a little bit more, well, let's say epic, considering that we're talking about Dungeons and Dragons. My biggest I will say at once that my biggest disappointment that I had this movie is that it needed a little bit more of the world building and a little bit more, well, here's a term that is not exactly very popular in this day and age. More diversity when it's surrounding kind of like the characters and what I meant in the fantasy sense, not in the terms that you might that more social political things that you might think about it. More actually, like I said, I wish it could be more fantasy diverse to build up a more fantastical world. And besides, we're talking about Dungeons and Dragons. I'm sure that the world is really, really big when you go around those books and games. And you can't let the imagination fly. But unfortunately, it kind of went into kind of like a standard safe plot, as well as a standard with the most standard of all type of people that you could get into it. And I just kind of wish they could push a little bit more on that on the world building. But nevertheless, I felt that it was enjoyable to sit through. There's some parts, of course, that I was like kind of like rolling my eyes out because, again, like I already mentioned, you kind of expect that they're gonna try out, the try hard Marvel Cinematic Universe kind of banter and the type of humor. They do that. Luckily, they don't go into cringe level or very try hard. They kind of use it a little bit sparingly. So let's say that this makes it more bearable to watch. So let's go on and let me explore this movie right now. So we got a kind of like a simple synopsis in which we got Chris Pine playing this guy named Edgen, who he had a wife. Then because the wife dies because of this red mage army and he survived with his daughter. And then they meet this woman named Olga, who is played by Michelle Rodriguez. And then they form kind of like a group of they become a group of bandits until the father decides that he wants to gain this MacGuffin type of artifact that it enables him to revive his deceased wife. But unfortunately, they're betrayed by Hugh Grant. Hugh Grant, who plays kind of like this con man, and he and Olga, they become they spent 2 years in prison. Then they escape. They find out that Hugh Grant was behind all this plot. He was even behind this sorceress that is the one that fumbled the mission, and he basically also poisons. Let's say that it manipulates the daughter to believe that his father doesn't like her anymore. And so basically now it comes to kind of like the plot. A father wanted to rescue his daughter from this slimy guy. So he makes up a party of him being a bard. Olga Michelle Rodriguez, she's basically the barbarian. They go with another friend who is Justice Smith, and who he plays a sorcerer that has low self-esteem, and Sophia Lillis, who is kind of this woman named Doric, who I think she's kind of like an elf, but it's an elf that can shapeshift. So we got basically a bard who is also practically a rogue, a barbarian, a magician, and probably an elf. I will say that elf, shapeshifting elf. So this is the party that we get into it, because you know that it is. I didn't exactly kind of take advantage of Well, actually, they did. They did classify. We could classify these characters by their classes, because classes and professions are basically a staple and importance on any RPG, even Dungeons and Dragons. We got, for example, okay, here you're the warrior, you're the barbarian, you're the magician, you are the thief. Although it was kind of little, although they didn't tell you kind of like in your face, or it didn't tell you kind of like something specific. You just see it and that's it. Although Chris Pine, it kind of baffles me. He always carries a lute, but he never calls himself a bard. But he actually has characteristics of a rogue, or a thief. There's also kind of like he has a backstory that he belonged to this order of justice that I kind of struggle to remember. But he is indeed. But yes, again, he has kind of like thief or rogue or bard qualities, and well, the movie also kind of a little bit pushes out that the most badass of the whole group is Michelle Rodriguez, because well, she's a barbarian, she's the one that kick ass the most, and and this is actually one of the a few instances in the movies that I actually tolerated Justice Smith. I mean, Justice Smith, I know him kind of like the screamy goat kid from Jurassic World 2, Fallen Kingdom. But in this case, it kind of fits what he did. I didn't feel annoyed by it. And Sophia and the elf, of course, she's kind of like saying, I hate humans, but because they destroy our homeland, so. But okay, I'm gonna help you out because I'm not doing it for you. I'm gonna do it for these people who are doing all these things. There is the movie also has a paladin. Who is it? Who is it played with? Let me see if I can see him. You know what? I don't remember the name of the guy, but you're gonna know that this guy is kind of really straight up a paladin, because he's very selfless. He's very selfless. His motivation is very pure. But you're gonna know that that they're all trying to plan, to rescue the daughter, and in order to do that, they need this magical artifact, which is kind of like a helmet that is kind of like important for the plan. I'm not gonna go exactly too much into details because it's gonna spoil up a little bit too much of the movie. But the movie is basically kind of like just go with the journey and that's it. Although I do have to warn you that there is a little bit of a fantasy vocabulary that it makes you get lost. I got a little bit lost in this movie because sometimes they come up with these names that is fitting for the world that they're in, but not me. Now I go a little bit with the cinematography, which sometimes is good, but sometimes they kind of overuse a little bit, kind of like their style. I think there are two opportunities in which they put the camera upside down, and also, not gonna lie, the CGI on the monsters is really not noticeable. It's really noticeable. So Dennis is kind of like a low tier Phase 4 Marvel's CGI. Although I think the movie kind of earned a little bit the bad thing because they're not trying to do too much. The monsters, they kind of look good, and sometimes they look bad. And in ways, I kind of wish they could see more. And I can see why they kind of struggle with the world building, which is the biggest complaint that I have, because they have this world that you can even have demi-humans or kind of like walking dragons, walking crows, or walking cat anthropomorphic animals. And you don't take advantage of that. I like when you have these anthropomorphic animals. Maybe it could have been better if it's kind of not a nitpick. You should have at least one character that is not a human or an elf. Unfortunately, they do that. We got a four part. We got two humans. One, Dory can be considered an elf, and the mage is basically an half elf. I think so. I think of it. There are four humans, and there's there you show that there's a world in which they can live in harmony with anthropomorphic animals. So maybe it could have been well if you can use at least one anthropomorphic creature as is the party. And so that's what I meant. I know that it's not inexcusable for me finding out a checklist, but at least it's a fun checklist. It's a fun checklist that could help out, the world building of this world. And it's sad because it is during one moment in which when the creatures appear, this is when the movie becomes really exciting, when you see more of the creatures that they have. I mean, there isn't. Also, they leave it out mostly during one of the climax parts, and you saw that in the trailer. You see bear owls. You see fat dragons and even mimics. Even the mimics. By the way, I want to review you that they wanted to play out cute on one scene, which is in one of the climax. They wanted to play cute because they decided to play Easter eggs in which I'm gonna tell you right away, but I hope that this kind of makes you want to watch it because saying, "Oh, I want to see that." Here goes. They want to play it cute in one moment in which they have a few people and they are dressed. They are dressed as the characters from the animated series. I'm not joking. That's the Easter egg that they wanted to put out for the sake of being cute. People dressed up exactly like the character from the animated series. Man, at first, when that moment appeared, I was like, did they really do that? Because at first it's on the background, but then you'll see them clearly, and I was like, oh my god, they did. And I don't believe they're the same ones, the same characters. I'll just leave it at that, by the way. So this is my complaint about a little bit of the world building nitpick. And the movie sometimes drags on a little bit, kind of like long. But don't worry, there are some moments in which it doesn't drag out too much. You just go enjoy the journey, and it pays off. And some of the characters, they have kind of like a little bit paper thin motivations or paper thin character development. But honestly, they were trying out the kind of like the basics of RPG modes. Well, I wouldn't say basic. They just make it simple. And in this case, I think they kind of earned the simpleness. It doesn't necessarily need it to be over the top complex or some Marvel Cinematic Universe plot here and there. They just don't go with it. They just have fun. They just go along with it. And now that I think about it, I never talk about the quality of the acting, which is sympathetic. They did their job. Chris Pine is still kind of like charming. Michelle Rodriguez and Justice Smith and Sophia Lillis, they did their job. But I do also have to give credit to Hugh Grant, because my God, Hugh Grant today, he really amps up his sliminess on the character, and he delivers it. This is another pro that I have to say. So, man, for some reason, I just kind of really expected that this movie to be bad, this laughable, and honestly, I got a little bit half of it, but I don't have the heart to, hate it. I just like it. I just like it. I had a lot of fun with it, and I think this is pretty much a kind of like a good appetizer, because next week we got the Super Mario Brothers movie. Oh man, it's been a long time, but okay, I'll tell you right now that as much as many people are anticipating the Super Mario Brothers movie, I'm not exactly, how can I say, really anticipating. Okay, I'm half anticipating, but there's one thing that keeps me from being excited, and I'll tell you next time. But other than that, it is an enjoyable movie. You're gonna have fun with it. It's not a perfect movie. They did their best to make it an enjoyable movie. It just makes you want to wish that it's a little bit more than what I wanted. It needed a little bit more magical creatures in it, or more kind of like a more diverse species of half-breeds or half-humans, or gnomes, or dwarves, or draconians, in order to make this world a little bit more richer and more bigger. Make it bigger, but of course they didn't go there. So that's all I have to say. If you want it, roll 20 for initiative.